Doctor Strange. Now, of course, this is my spoiler-free review. If you guys want to skip over to the spoiler review or spoiler discussion video that I'm going to do after this, you guys can look for that. Once it's uploaded, there will be a link in the description, but for anyone who might be checking this out before that ends up getting uploaded, just come back and you'll just be able to find it. But going straight into this, I was happy to go see this movie because we were getting something very different from the Marvel Universe. We were getting like a huge dose of magic, and although we technically have magic in the Marvel Universe with Thor and Loki and stuff, and you know, they even kind of talk about how it's like pseudo magic and not necessarily. This dives right into it. It's like, it's straight up magic. It's like stuff you can't comprehend because it looks so freaking insane and stuff like that. And I enjoyed that. I was excited to go see it. Everything I'd heard were people, you know, because it did like a 15-minute preview or something like that, like the week, you know, last week or like 2 weeks ago or something, and people were talking about how it was just insane to see. So I was excited. I was like, I like the visuals I saw from the trailer. You know, they're making like shields and whips and stuff like that. And I just visually, I was like, this looks really cool. So that's what I was really excited to see. I know a little about Doctor Strange because I watched the old animated Marvel movie that they had about him, and it was his origin story. So I knew what his character was like. I think they did a good job with it. I think they went. I think it was even greater what they did with him before he becomes, you know, Doctor Strange. So I actually really enjoyed that part before he gets into all the magical stuff. I was like, this is actually really, really well done because there are just certain elements I forgot about his character, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that he was kind of like that. So it was cool to see that, and they kind of push it to the greatest level in a good way, I think. And then once he becomes, you know, full-on, you know, magical Doctor Strange, I thought it was a nice journey. I like the way they did it. Of course, certain details I can't go into in this video, so I'll hold off on that. But I like the way it ended. I was pleasantly surprised by the way they did it. I was like, all right, I think that's kind of a cool thing to do, you know, just within this universe. That's how, you know, really most movies go. If there's ever a hero, you kind of know how it's going to go. But it was a little bit different, especially for a superhero character. I thought it was pretty well done. So I enjoyed that. I liked the visuals. I thought the action was pretty good. There are a couple of, there's like one very specific set piece. It's the one like in the trailer, and then the final fight scene. Those two are really great. Like, all the fight scenes are actually really cool because it's people flipping and flying and all this stuff. If it's not like crazy visual, then the people are using magic in a really cool way to do all sorts of crazy stuff. So all the fights are interesting, and it's like a blend of cool effects and stuff, and then some of it is kind of like, you know, really good fight choreography as well, because there are actual hits being thrown. It's not all just, you know, magic whips and stuff. There are actual physical elements to it as well. So it definitely looks awesome. The fight choreography was good. I thought the story was well done. The one thing that really got me, and I think it's kind of, it never really bothered me too much before, but in this one, I really noticed the villain thing. It was like, man, everyone always talks about Marvel doesn't have great villains, and I was like, I kind of felt that in this. It was like, in one way it worked because we have our main villain is played by Mads Mikkelsen, and he's, you know, doing all the stuff, you know, in the trailer and everything. And I was like, okay, he basically, you know, kind of goes through his normal thing and stuff, and I was just like, I was like, I don't know. You know, he was cool in the beginning. I just felt, despite, you know, it was like a half and half thing. Like, I like what they did with Strange at the end, but I didn't really like what they did with the villain at the end. I was like, in one way, what they did with the villain was actually kind of cool because it was kind of a unique way to do it. But at the same time, I was like, that just kind of, the way it ended, it ultimately felt like the villain was somewhat lackluster. It was like, oh, you know, you're going towards this ultimate goal, and you know, like, of course, you know, heroes, so the hero wins and the villain loses, but the way they lost was like, to me, it was just like, you know, this character was kind of just, you know, you lost, and that was pretty much it. And it was more about what Strange did in the ending than the villain, you know, himself. It was like, he was cool before the ultimate moment, but, you know, once it got to the ultimate ending and how they defeated the villain, it was kind of just like, oh, that was kind of cool, but it was more because of Strange. Like, the villain himself was just like, oh, well, he kind of was, you know, wasn't even involved in it as much as I would have liked, just because of how Strange took care of him. So I was like, okay, well, alright. So I actually noticed the villain thing. That normally doesn't have any effect on me, but I was like, yeah, I see this. It's really like he And they didn't have, and maybe this was a part of it. The villain, I felt, only showed up during fight scenes, and I don't know, for some reason I thought that was a little weird. I was like, there should be parts where the villain is there, and it's not just straight up, oh, here's an action scene. I think they only have like, honestly, maybe 2 or 3 scenes where the villain shows up and he's not in an action scene, like where it's just the villain and he's talking or whatever. Maybe 3 or 4 scenes, but they're like really short scenes. And I'm like, everything else is like he's only here to just be one of the, just like the best fighter out of the other fighter characters. And I was like, like that didn't seem that cool to me. There wasn't, it was sort of a generic villain sort of thing. Like, I'm doing this to do this, but I still feel like it was cooler to watch it as it led to the ending, until, once it got to the ending, it was like, okay. And it still led to some really cool stuff. Like, the end fight scene was still really great. But like I said, the way Doctor Strange handled it was like the cool part, and the villain being defeated wasn't really the cool part about it. It wasn't, it was just like, I didn't really like that too much. But I did like the movie overall, for sure. It had some good comedy. They kind of, do the thing like Marvel does their comedy, where they know this is probably a more serious character, so it's thrown in there a little bit less, kind of like with Captain America, but even less than Captain America, because Captain America has, Falcon now, but even less than that. But there's some jokes thrown in there for sure. And of course they have their, their little buzzwords like, oh, the Avengers do this, but we do this. So they have their little buzzwords where it's like, yeah, we're in the universe and stuff. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And honestly, I like the way this one played out. I thought this one, because it was so detached and it's like, so focused in magic, I felt this kind of had, at least by the end of it, I felt this sort of had the essence of kind of like the Netflix shows, where it's like, okay, this was its own little thing. It was, of course, with magic, so it was like a much grander scale than like, Daredevil and stuff like that. But just the way it was handled, it was like, the Avengers do this, but we do this sort of thing. It's still really grand scheme, because it's like all of magic, so it's not just, Daredevil's fighting somebody in Hell's Kitchen. It's still much grander, because it's like all of magic and this and that. But I felt by the end, it kind of had sort of that Netflix feel to it, where it's like, okay, they went through this great thing, but that's not the be-all, end-all. There's still more to come from this character, and I think it's clear to see that, and not just, oh, let's hint the next villain, or it wasn't done like that. I thought it was done in a pretty cool way. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty cool. Of course, it has its extra credit scene, or mid-credit scene, and then after-credit scene, both of which I thought were pretty interesting, and they both lead to, what's going to happen with Doctor Strange. So I'm excited for that, and kind of his future in the Marvel Universe. But ultimately, I would, of course, recommend this movie. I wasn't like super epically blown away. I certainly enjoyed it, but it wasn't like when I saw Civil War or anything like that. It didn't like blow my mind to go through this and have all these characters fighting. And for me personally, I thought Civil War was well done. So it wasn't like that. It kind of, it really blew me away more with the visuals and the action than it did with the story, which is probably the worst thing about it. But it was like, I say the first half is better than the second half, aside from the action stuff, because the action stuff gets even better as the movie goes on. But I thought the story was better, going from Doctor Strange as just this doctor to Doctor Strange learning magic and becoming, the mystical version of Doctor Strange. And that was, I think, the best part of it. Once it got into like the climax of what was happening with the villain, it was like, okay, this is happening, and it was still entertaining. But like I said, I think it was really just, kind of the ending thing, and where I normally don't notice the villain as an issue or being kind of lackluster. Like a lot of people did, like Zemo from Civil War. I thought Zemo was amazing, even though he hardly does anything. He's like a manipulator in that. And the villain in this is way more confrontational, and I was still like, yeah, I just didn't like him as much. I thought he was a great fighter, and he did some epic stuff, but it was just the conclusion of it I thought wasn't as cool, and that was the main issue. It was like, it's kind of cool, but it just wasn't like great to me. I thought it was just kind of like, it was just interesting the way it was done to me. But still like the movie. Excited to see how they keep Doctor Strange in the universe. I'm very curious how they're gonna do Doctor Strange with other characters, because they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and they show it in the trailers where it's like Inception times 100, where the city's folding in and all that, and I'm like, I I don't know how this is gonna just fit in with everybody else. Where he's like, I mean, he doesn't have to do all that, which is probably how it's gonna play out. Where he's not like bending things and flipping stuff in and out, and he just does like kind of some of the stuff they show in the trailer, like them going through like the portals and things like that. So maybe he'll do some of the simpler things. But I was just thinking like, man, this is if things got of course as drastic as they're supposed to get once we get to like Infinity Wars and all that, they're gonna need to do some of these crazy tricks and do a lot of crazy stuff that we see in here. So it was just kind of funny thinking about how that's gonna play out. But definitely a fun movie. Like I said, the action was good. I do think the story was good. I just thought the first part of it was more enjoyable than, oddly enough, the second part, which was like 100% magic and stuff like that. And it was because Doctor Strange's journey as a character, going from, at this point you should know how the movie goes, but he goes from a doctor to Doctor Strange. And so watching that journey, I think, was the best part. Just him being this character before magic and then this character after magic. And then I'd say about 85, no, not even 85, like 95% of this I really enjoyed. It's just like that last little 5% where it was like, and like there's just something about it that wasn't just like mind blowing. It was great to see, but this isn't like I'm gonna go see it twice. Like I know I'm not gonna see it twice unless I end up going to see it with other people because it was cool to watch, but it was really like that first part that I really loved, like his, him going through that experience and learning to be someone new. And then once he kind of gets, once they kind of do the part where it's like, okay, he's comfortable being this new person, it was just like, okay, well, the fight scenes are cool now. And there's some other little stuff that is kind of referenced from the earlier part when he was just a guy who was a doctor. So there's still snippets in there where I'm like, okay, I really like this. And this, is a little element of the magic that's introduced that he's, still trying to figure out. And that stuff is fun to watch. But, it kind of just goes through and it's like, I realize I like kind of the greater beginning portion than I like that last little bit of it. And that's just how it was for me. I still recommend seeing it. I don't think it's a bad movie at all. I don't know if you got issues with motion sickness. I don't know, like the middle scene, which is the one that's shown in the trailer where the buildings are like folding in. There's like a lot more of that. So I don't know if that bothered you in the trailer. You might just have to close your eyes and listen for that scene because there's so many crazy visuals during that mid-movie battle sequence. And then even the ending, they do something really cool, and it's not as crazy visual, but it's still really interesting. And it was something I don't think I've ever seen done in any sort of fight scene. So that, I was like, well, that's really cool just from a technical standpoint of how they're fighting in this situation. So it's like a technical thing where it changes how they battle, and a visual thing as well. So it had some amazing fight sequences because it was so different from anything I was used to, whether it was superhero based or just period action based. So that's a great highlight for it. Visuals are crazy, but the story is definitely well done, and I'm excited to see where they go with this character. Of course, if you've seen the movie, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts, with spoilers if you want to get into like specific details, or you can just wait until the spoiler video. But of course, with this being, I don't even know, this is like the millionth movie, whatever. So I think the next movie coming out is supposed to be Thor. I'm pretty sure Thor is the next one, Thor Ragnarok. So we have Thor and Hulk, and then I don't even know, Black Panther's after that, I believe, or something else is coming out, and then Black Panther. I really don't know the sequence of these movies. I think Guardians of the Galaxy, that might actually be our next one. But with this movie coming out, we've had all these different films, all these characters who've met each other. Pretty much, everyone's kind of met at this point, except for, of course, the X-Men. But everybody's met each other. Now we have Doctor Strange truly diving into magic. I really want to know how you guys felt about its introduction into this universe. How you think it'll blend with the rest of, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Also, because our next big Marvel thing before even the movies come out is actually Iron Fist, and he's involved in a lot of magic too. So, this is like our last big, Marvel thing for the year is going to be Doctor Strange, and then our next big thing next year is going to be more magic stuff with Iron Fist. So I want to know what you guys think about them kind of doubling down on the magic at this point, just the way it all played out, I guess. But Want to know what you guys thought about its introduction into the cinematic universe. Of course, like I said, your favorite parts of the movie, least favorite parts, with spoilers if you want to get into some really big details. But ultimately, just want to know what you thought about the film, whether it was good, whether it was bad. Are you going to see it twice? Because like I said, for me, I think this is probably the first one in a while where I was like, I don't really care to see it twice. Like, even when I was in the theater, I was like, I liked it, but it's not something where I'm like, I'm going to see that twice. I wanted to see Civil War twice. I know everybody hated X-Men, but I actually wanted to see that. I didn't end up seeing either of those twice. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have seen Civil War in theaters twice so I could see the fight scene on the big screen. But I actually like both those movies, and I would have actually gone to see them twice. And honestly, it's probably, for as far as X-Men goes, that's probably the Quicksilver scene by itself is worth seeing it in the theaters more than one time, honestly. But you know, that's just how I feel about it. Are you going to see it twice? What do you think about it? So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.